Iraq after Saddam Hussein is gone. In fact, we in the administration have already begun doing so. And if you have not had the chance yet, I encourage you to read the speech that Stephen Hadley, the President's Deputy National Security Advisor, delivered last week in New York City. As I said, I've come here to listen to you, not just to speak to you. But let me start our discussion by focusing briefly on 5 subjects. First, what are the principles that should shape the future of a post-Saddam Iraq? Principles that can be broadly agreed upon by the Iraqi people themselves, by the United States, and by the broader international coalition. Second, what are some of the key issues that the Iraqi people will face in the aftermath of Saddam Hussein's regime? And how can the international community assist Iraqis to answer those questions, which Iraqis must answer for themselves? Third, what kinds of assistance should the international community be prepared to provide to meet the immediate needs of the Iraqi people? Fourth, perhaps most important, can democracy take root in Iraq, and how will it do so? And fifth, and the reason why I brought such a distinguished and important group with me today, we want to talk with you in this open forum, and then we'll be available afterwards to talk in more detail about how Iraqi American citizens or Iraqis who have recently immigrated to the United States can assist the U.S. government and the coalition in the aftermath of a forcible removal of the Saddam Hussein regime, should it come to that. Let me first briefly talk about those principles. In the speech I spoke of earlier, Steve Hadley, as I said, the President's Deputy National Security Advisor, said, and I'm quoting now, "The goal which we are confident we share with Iraq's people is an Iraq that is whole, free, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. An Iraq that is moving toward democracy, in which all religions and ethnic communities have a voice, and in which individual rights are protected, regardless of gender, religion, or ethnicity." And he concluded, "An Iraq that adheres to the rule of law at home and lives up to its international obligations." Let me summarize briefly the principles that the U.S. government is applying and thinking about a post-Saddam Iraq, and you can read them in more detail in Mr. Hadley's speech. They are first, and this is really the overarching principle, the United States seeks to liberate Iraq, not to occupy Iraq. Iraq must be disarmed of all weapons of mass terror, weapons production capabilities, and the means to deliver such weapons. This is a complex and dangerous task for which detailed planning is already underway. Third, we must eliminate Iraq's terrorist infrastructure. The unified state with its territorial integrity intact. And fifth, with our coalition partners, we must help the Iraqi people begin the process of economic and political reconstruction. Those are principles that define American policy, that define the principles on which the coalition will operate. And if I can judge from the reaction of this audience, it seems to me they are principles that we here agree on. But there are other issues that really have to be answered by Iraqis, that cannot be answered by others. In moving toward that goal, Iraqis themselves must answer such questions, and this is just a partial list, about democratic institutions. And keep in mind that democratic institutions are not just about free elections, but about securing individual freedom and equal justice under law. But Iraqis need to answer the question, what institutions are best suited to secure freedom and democracy in the unique circumstances of Iraq? Second important set of issues, recognizing that democratic institutions cannot come into being overnight, is to figure out how quickly the transition to democratic government should take place and in what stages. Third important question, how can Iraqis ensure the unity and territorial integrity of Iraq while providing the appropriate level of self-government? For those of you who know American history, you know that this was a challenge our country faced more than 200 years ago. The answers we framed have worked well for us, but Iraqis need answers that are suited for Iraqi conditions. Fourth, and quite importantly, I think, how do you strike a balance between the need to account for past injustices and the need to avoid creating new animosities and new sources of conflict? The answers to these questions are not for America nor for the international community to dictate. Iraqis need to answer them for themselves. A Muslim friend of mine pointed me to Surah 13, verse 11 of the Quran, where it says, "Surely God does not change the condition of a people until they change their own condition." Today, I hope you will share your thoughts with us and with the American people who are listening to us today about these important subjects. Third, what the international community must be prepared to do. While Iraqis must confront many issues and challenges, they will not be alone. The international community must be prepared to do its share to help Iraq in the process of liberating the Iraqi people and setting them immediately on the road to recovery. Should military force become necessary to liberate Iraq from Saddam Hussein, the United States and its coalition partners will make every effort to avoid hurting non-combatants and to spare infrastructure that free Iraqis will need to rebuild their nation. Our concern for the safety of Iraq's people will not begin on the day hostilities end, but on the day one. The United States and the international community will work to ensure the rapid flow. When Saddam Hussein and his regime are nothing more than a horrible memory, the United States will remain committed to helping the Iraqi people establish a free, prosperous, and peaceful Iraq that can serve as a beacon for the entire region. Goals, there is no greater engine than the industrious and well-educated people of Iraq themselves. Along with our coalition partners, we would help Iraqis begin the process of economic and political reconstruction. We would assist the people of Iraq in putting their country on a path towards prosperity and freedom. If the President decides it is necessary to use force, let me assure you once again that the United States will be committed to liberating the people of Iraq, not becoming an occupation force. Secretary Rumsfeld elaborated further, and I'm now quoting from my boss, "If the United States were to lead an international coalition in Iraq, and let there be no doubt it would be a very large one, it would be guided by two commitments," the Secretary said. "These two commitments are that we would stay as long as necessary and leave as soon as possible." Let me raise the issue of democracy and whether democracy is possible in Iraq. There are some who ask that question, is democracy possible in Iraq? And they answer it no. They doubt that democracy could ever take root anywhere in the Arab world. I think they're wrong. And let me give you my response, but when you get a chance, I hope you'll give us yours. First, look to the people of northern Iraq. Beyond the reach of Saddam Hussein and his regime for more than a decade, they have shown a remarkable ability to manage long-standing differences and to develop relatively free and prospering societies, even though they labor under the same economic sanctions that are supposed to cause so much misery in the rest of the country, and even though they live in constant threat from Saddam Hussein. If you're not convinced by that, finally, I say to these doubters, look at the Iraqi people's long yearning for representative government, and look at their long suffering under one of the most oppressive dictatorships the world has known. Perhaps more than any other people, they have been inoculated against tyranny. As you know, the values of freedom and democracy are not just Western values or European values. They are Muslim and Asian values as well. Indeed, they are universal values. They are the bridge that spans civilizations. That's my answer to the critics. But in the end, you can answer the question much better than I can. Is Iraq capable of democracy?